Hey there gamers, DreamcastGuy here. Today we're talking about the Nintendo Switch 2 and kind of just the state of Nintendo, because last night they did a giant meeting, an investor call talking about the health of Nintendo, both the hardware and the software. And it's kind of strange. In a way, Nintendo admits that the Nintendo Switch 2 isn't really selling as fast as they expected, but there is some good news and some bad news. But the part of this that definitely just stuck out to me the most is they admit there are less Nintendo players now. They've actually lost people since 2024. There's less people with Nintendo accounts. There's less people playing the Nintendo Switch 1 or the Nintendo Switch 2. And because of this, their stock value is falling a lot. And I want to discuss this because I'm going to take this as a positive. I'm not going to pretend that Nintendo is about to die or that Nintendo is copying Xbox and going third party. I think that this bad news is going to end up being good for gamers in the long run. But let me explain. Hi, hope you're having a great day. If you could please give this video a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Now let's start with the fact that honestly, this stock dip is insane. They lost 13%, a little over 12% of their company value just last night. Now you can see a couple companies did. Capcom's in there, Konami, Sony lost about 4%. Now, this is a mix of two things. It does sound like a lot of people inside the gaming industry right now are really excited about AI-generated games. Now, you and I, we're sane. We're people that actually pick up a controller, so we know that AI is gobbledygook at best and a poor distraction at worst. But this goes beyond that. This goes to the fact that Nintendo has pretty much outlined that hardware is a huge part of their total profitability, and prices are eventually going to go up. Right now, obviously, it's already $100 to buy a Nintendo Switch controller. I mean, they're basically just admitted that the system is going to get expensive in a while. So a lot of people already, investors are saying they're kind of dipping out. But this to me doesn't feel like the full excuse. I mean, the fact that Sony is also making a lot of money on hardware and Sony only lost 4%, so it's not quite the full story of it, right? Now, there is some good news as well. Nintendo Direct tomorrow morning. I'm definitely going to watch this. I'm definitely excited about this, but this was the part that also kind of caught my mind, right? So this is the total sales. They always like to talk about their first party stuff and how well it's doing. You'll notice Metroid Prime 4 did not make the list. Metroid Prime 4 just straight up did not sell even 1 million copies. 1 million is the floor for them to actually talk about it financially. Every single Metroid game just bombs. And it's wild that Metroid historically has been a good one. I thought Metroid Prime 4 sucked, but it seems like Donkey Kong's selling decent. All the games are at least selling moderately well, right? Let me talk about the big controversy, right? The thing is going to make you pissed. We have a bunch more slides to go through here, but let's just talk about this, right? All right, this is the last 4 Nintendo Switch 2 exclusives. Air Riders Kirby, Pokemon Legends, Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment, Metroid Prime 4. Now, what do you notice? What do you notice? Not a single one of them even broke an 80 on Metacritic. Now, again, I'm not going to pretend, oh, dead console, no games. I think it's the fact that not only are none of these are bangers, but also none of these are those crazy games that get attention. You know, I think a lot of people kind of hate Zelda Breath of the Wild now because, boy, howdy, is Breath of the Wild stuck around for such a long time at this point. But a lot of people kind of say, like, all right, Breath of the Wild, though, the Nintendo Switch 1, that being the Zelda machine, it sold a lot of systems. And it's interesting that it does feel like at this point, we're already coming up now on a year. It came out last June. It came out June 9th. We're like, what, 9 months past release now? So literally coming up here in a bit, we're going to have the next, the annual review. It does seem like the first couple months have been very bleak. Maybe that's just me, but I just feel like not a lot of people are excited about. How many people have you seen, even Nintendo fans, saying, hell yeah, Kirby Air Riders, even a week after release, right? Oh, and I guess the next one coming up, I guess we're about to get another Mario Tennis game. Literally, gun to my head, I could not tell you what the name of the next Mario Tennis game is, and I think that's coming out in a week. Maybe it's out now, but it's probably called something like Super Duper Cool Aces Special Edition $80. But the Nintendo president said the Switch 2 sales outside of Japan have been weaker than they expected. While domestic hardware has exceeded our expectations, overseas sales were slightly weaker than our expectations. And a lot of people are like, well, that's because it's cheaper in Japan, so that's kind of nice. Likely a combination of overseas economy and not as many console seller IPs at launch. Feel like people will be picking it up when it gets more games, right? Game key cards, everything being sold at a premium. Talking to your friends is locked behind an actual thing. That's right, you do have to pay to press the game chat button. Also, $80 ports of 20-year-old games. Launch lineup comprised of Cyberpunk, a 2020 game, and Mario Kart. Did it blow people away? I'm shocked. Glad the West isn't as stupid as Japan. Okay, well, that guy kind of went off the deep end there. Oh my God, time for the Nintendo doomed console war posting. Now, people were talking about this over on Reddit, and it seems like what's wild about this is that this isn't just a tariff issue, because when they say overseas, they do mean outside of Japan. They literally just mean every other place. Everything is expensive everywhere. This is not just, hey, look at it. Cost of living is an issue throughout the entire world. So yes, it is that type of thing where PS5 sales are also down. Xbox doesn't have any sales to go down. It is interesting that we're in a spot where even accounting for tariffs, even accounting for it being such an expensive Nintendo console, it just seems like worldwide, people aren't really buying any consoles. And that does affect the Nintendo Switch as well, right? But here's the other thing that this is the part that to me is the most actually shocking. Interesting Nintendo stat, which is annual play users declined in 2025. People with Nintendo accounts who played Switch or Switch 2 in the past year. Expanding the player base helps Nintendo. When a company isn't expanding, they may sell pricey niche objects the way they can boost profits from super fans. But look at this. It went down literally less than 1%. We're talking it went down for, what is that? That's 0.6%. The total player base shrinks. But it is just wild because you almost never, ever see this. With pretty much any game, any live service, any ecosystem, everything typically just infinitely grows, right? We're talking about PlayStation's always getting new fans. Steam just keeps going up and up and up and up. It's weird that PlayStation versus Nintendo, PlayStation does continue to climb, whereas we're only seeing this little teeny tiny blip from Nintendo. It's just interesting to me that I think people get mad when I say this. I really do feel like there wasn't hype for the Nintendo Switch 2. I think the diehard Nintendo fans that love new hardware and stuff, they were excited. But think about, the tens of millions of people that just had a Nintendo Switch 2 play Breath of the Wild and Animal Crossing. Can you really say, hey, it's time to buy a $500 thing that has a slightly better screen and a worse battery life? They're not going to be invested in that. And some people may even quit when it's announced, oh, your current hardware is about to be irrelevant. But this is not to say the system itself is selling bad, right? The Nintendo Switch 2 has sold, wowzers, 17 million units and just a slight sliver under 38 million units of software. So what is that? That's close to 2.1. So that's a pretty crazy attach rate. The Nintendo has always had historically the biggest attach rate of any of the big three. And it is cool that going into this, I'm curious how much of this is across the board. Let's face it, everybody bought, we can just look at the numbers here, obviously. We can look at the numbers here. Everybody bought a copy of Mario Kart. So I almost kind of want to discount that. I kind of want to say that this is sort of almost kind of a fake number, because this is basically everybody bought one game after buying the Nintendo Switch, which has a copy of Mario Kart. But even still, it shows that people are buying games. Still, 2 games in, I don't even know how long, almost a year, not the best, right? Look at that, though. It is outpacing the original Nintendo Switch 2. You can see the Nintendo Switch 1 also had a bit of a slope off here. So it is interesting. They're definitely selling, right? But they did say that currently they're doing their best not to increase the price. That's good in the short term. I do think they are signaling that there is going to be a price increase possibly around that 1 year mark. I would not be surprised if we see another price increase. And what sucks is that when this hits, it's going to hit everything. It's going to hit PlayStation. It's going to hit Xbox, but who cares? And I think it's going to hit Nintendo really, really hard. Nintendo has said they try their least to not subsidize. Nintendo really wants to make it where if they sell a system for $300, they want to be getting like $20 of profit, right? They said that very much they try to sell it at enough of a markup that the hardware and the software is profitable. So if they raise the price of the memory, they're probably going to super jack up the price of the Nintendo Switch 2 to stay extra in the green, right? I think that software-wise, I think there have been some talks from developers that games aren't selling as good as they imagined. A lot of games, even in my opinion, some very bad ports of stuff sold exceptionally well on the Nintendo Switch 1. In a way, they're just not selling on the Nintendo Switch 2. Multiple developers have said that stuff is just really down. Some companies have been happy with it. I know that there has been talk about the Final Fantasy VII Remake. Some people are saying the numbers are pretty dang high, but there has been stuff as well of this. I am kind of curious about this possibly canceled version of Borderlands 4 for the Nintendo Switch 2. We really don't know. They said we've paused the development. That's a very strange statement. I'm curious. I wish we would see more talk about third party because so far it's very difficult to tell how much this is working, how much the success of the Nintendo Switch 1's crazy attach rate is transferring over to the Nintendo Switch 2. But these have just been some off-the-cuff thoughts. How do you feel about the future of the Nintendo, and how do you feel about the Nintendo Switch 2? Did you buy one? I have one, and I probably play it, I couldn't even hazard a guess, 2 or 3 hours a month. Pretty much, I use it for the reviews. I use it when there's an exclusive, but most of the time, you can literally see the dust of my controllers, right? Thanks so much for watching. If you could, please give this video a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and please keep dreaming. Thanks so much for watching that video. If you want to see something else, you can always click this link to see what I put up last, or, subscribe and see what's coming up next. Also, I promise that whatever I do, it'll try not to suck.